History is full of rich connections to God and the great outdoors He created for us. I'm on a mission to share these experiences with my children, alongside other fathers who want to introduce their sons and daughters to the beauty and bounty of the world where we are blessed to walk with our Heavenly Father in His garden. My name is Jacob Whitley. This is Fathers and the Great Outdoors.
Okay, these are the guys talking all the smack. Who's talking all the smack anyway today? Oh, you're pointing at your dad, Eric? Or Wesley? All right. Brian, is it this guy right here?
Oh, he's the biggest smack talker. I have no idea where he could learn that from.
I don't know where he learned how to tell stories at.
Every fish he caught. I caught this many fish. I caught this many fish. I caught this many fish.
The person who's filming taught me.
Hey, you just be quiet over there.
Welcome to the Fathers and the Great Outdoors. If you want to continue to support this content, you can visit our merch store. We have some gear on there as well at greatoutdoorspodcast.com. Today we have Dan Moore. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Yes.
So I just like to jump into this, kind of finding out how you got started in the great outdoors.
Well, originally from southern Michigan, live in west central Illinois now, but my dad was a coon hunter when I was a kid. So I started hunting and trapping by the age of 10 and have always done it.
Yeah.
Now, my big passion is bow hunting, but I literally taught myself. And back when I started 43 years ago, bow hunting, there wasn't videos or lots of archery shops and things like that to learn. So it was trial and error. And so I kind of started wanting to give something back once I finally learned how to bow hunt. And but that's how I got interested in outdoors and been doing it ever since.
What was the coon hunting back when they were selling pelts for that?
Oh yeah, back in the late 70s and early 80s, I was in high school and we had blue tick hound dogs and we would go out on the weekends, and back then furs were worth $35 to $50 a pelt for a fully skinned, stretched, and fleshed coon hide.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a kid in high school, we made lots of extra money between coon hunting and trapping, selling furs. And so I used to tromp through the swamps, the Michigan swamps with my dad, listen to them coon dogs run and tree coons. And we'd get 5-6 coons a night. And between those and the ones we trapped, we did pretty well. So
How long did you do that for? Or how long did he do that for?
Oh, my dad did it for probably 10 years that I'm aware of, until he got up there in age a little bit. And, the coon fur prices kind of bottomed out probably in the late 80s.
Yeah.
And the whole fur market kind of went bad, and he kind of gave up coon hunting, but I think he just wore himself out over the years anyway.
Right.
But that's when I took up small game and bow hunting for deer. In fact, I taught him and took him out and put him on his first deer with a bow years later.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So he, I guess, sort of aged out right about the time that it stopped kind of being a thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I still trapped quite a bit after that.
Like what?
Muskrat, raccoon, and mink in southern Michigan. We didn't have many coyotes up there back then. But my uncle was a pretty legendary fur trapper, but he trapped fox, and that was a big money fur back then as well. So after my dad really never was a trapper, just a coon hunter. So I kind of leaned on my uncle to learn how to do the trapping. We trapped ponds and streams and did quite a bit of that over the years. But,
okay.
Yeah.
Was that during when you were getting into the bow hunting, or was that kind of in between?
It was leading up to it. Like I say, I got my first deer with a bow in 1986. So It took me 4 years to get my first deer with a bow. I saw lots of them, but as I was in the woods trapping and hunting small game, I would run across deer and buck sign and really didn't know what I was looking at, but it was always interesting to me. So, I took an old used bow from my uncle. Once upon a time, my uncles decided they were going to be bow hunters, but they never really did anything with it. And it was so ironic that my first bow was the wrong hand because I didn't know any better. Didn't have any sights, no arrow rest. The arrows were all different sizes. So I had a pretty long learning curve to learn how to bow hunt. And in fact, years later, I became a firearm hunter safety instructor and a bow hunter education instructor and did it for about 18 years, just so the kids wouldn't have to have such a long learning curve that I did learning how to bow hunt.
Right. I'm still in my learning curve.
Oh, I live and breathe it 24/7. I was just in the woods tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was so when you say you had it in the wrong hand, were you shooting with the opposite, the dominant?
I was left-handed and I had a right-handed bow.
Okay.
But I found out even later in life that although I'm left-handed, I'm right-eye dominant. So technically, I should have been shooting a right-handed bow, and I currently shoot a right-handed bow now, even though I'm left-handed. I can shoot a bow and a gun either hand, but I learned a long time ago you have a dominant eye, and that's if you're a dominant right eye, you technically should be dominant. You should be shooting right-handed.
Right.
And so I forced myself to switch over and shoot right-handed later on in life because it just improved my accuracy.
That makes sense.
But ironically, what got me started into teaching firearm hunter safety and bow hunter classes was I had a nephew who his father passed away, and he asked if I would sit through a hunter safety course with him, which was mandatory in Michigan. And I thought as an adult that I knew quite a bit about hunting. When I sat through that first class with my nephew, I was so impressed by the instructors, and I realized I didn't know as much as I thought, that I wanted to become an instructor myself. So I went through the state certification back then and became one and did it for, like I say, many years afterwards.
Yeah.
So
I thought about doing that for firearm at some point, like self-defense.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that's the newest thing now is the CCW classes for concealed carry. I'm actually going to get certified to do that as well.
Oh yeah.
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 So
Are you doing that through the NRA program?
Yes. Yeah. I'm a life member, and my dad always was, so I have always been as well.
Yeah.
Oh, I tell you what, I mean, like teaching firearm hunter safety classes, that's generally for 10 to 10-year-old kids on up to anybody. But when I got into teaching the bow hunter education classes, it was for any age group, but it was mostly adults because it was put on by the International Bow Hunter Education Foundation. And several years ago in the mid-90s, they were really pushing the classes for everyone because a lot of your Western states were requiring it before you could buy a non-resident license.
Oh, interesting.
Now, I think since they dropped that, so you don't see as many bow hunter ed classes, but they were such a good learning experience that it was fun to teach them anyway.
That's for like a standard hunting license, or for like getting specific like bow tags?
Basically,
like
to buy any archery tag in like Wyoming, a lot of the Western states, they wanted, just like you did firearm, they wanted to make sure you knew what you were doing with bow, and that you weren't just out wounding game and letting it get away. So it was educational classes, and basically when to shoot, where to aim, lots of different parts of the bow hunter class. That was really interesting to teach. So
yeah,
but I really enjoyed it.
I'm trying to remember the just the basic hunting license class that I took. I don't think there was a section on like
on bow hunting.
Well, bow hunting, but also like moral hunting. So like knowing when not to fire. Ethics. There you go. Yeah. When not to fire and things like that.
Yeah.
That seems like something that would be very important for any hunter.
In Michigan, we had, of course, Michigan and Pennsylvania then had the two highest deer populations and the highest number of hunters. So, and and every county in Michigan had a county conservation club. And generally, if you remember that club, then some of those members would get certified to teach. And every club had their own classes they would teach. And you teach 5-6 classes a year before hunting season. I mean, I've literally put thousands of kids through Firearm Hunter Safety because it was mandatory. But they also had what was called a traveling trophy award that the state would award to the best instructors. And actually, our club won that like 5 years in a row because we were so hands-on. I mean, I've specialized in bow hunting, so we would put on a simulated blood trail and have the kids actually follow a blood trail as part of their instruction and during that 3-day class. So it was a good class, but we went above and beyond what was mandatory for the class just to give them some real world experience.
Is that a class you still run?
I don't now, since I like I said, I did it for about 18 years. When I moved down here to Illinois, I just they don't have conservation clubs down here, county clubs. So most of your firearm safety classes are done through either a private boating club or a shooting club or like the police department, which is sad that they don't have as many conservation clubs like we did in Michigan, because you just don't have as many kids scramble around here just to find a place to take the class. So it's a little bit harder.
Right.
I should start up something back here and since I moved down here, but I haven't.
Yeah, that's another thing I've thought about doing is there's a conservation club that's not even that far from my house that I thought about joining. That they have like hunting stands on their property, and I have a place that I hunt that I don't have to pay for. So it's, to me, like if that's the only motivation, then it's hard for me to go to that part of it. But at the same time, like we have the CWD testing and things like that. You only have to do it for, I think it's like 2.5 weeks in November. But if I have the opportunity, I just do it anyways because I want to help the research and things like that.
See, I think it was started in the mid 90s. 3D archery courses were very popular. Have you ever done any bow hunting to know what those are?
No.
So basically, your 3D deer targets. They have these high density foam targets. Like, it was so popular back in the 90s that every county conservation club had their own Saturday and Sunday archery leagues and shoots. And as a member of the club, I was part of the bow hunting club there as well. And you'd set 30 to 40 targets all through the woods at unknown distances. Then you'd set up markers, and then people would come in and pay. And the whole idea was to judge the distance. You have to guess how far that target is. And then you have a score sheet, like you're playing miniature golf, but you're using your bow and arrow in your field points, and you're shooting into these targets. And then you score an 8 for a lung or a 10 for a heart. And you score as you go through this course. And every club would try to set up the most challenging archery course, but still make it ethical and realistic. Like we even had a groundhog target that had electric motor on it. It would raise up and down. And you had to time it and shoot it when he raised up above the rocks. And we had a little pond that we had an alligator target, and you would float it out with pulleys and cables out to the center of the pond. You'd shoot the target. Hope you didn't miss, otherwise the arrow was floating around in the pond. You have to try to retrieve your arrow. But these were very competitive sports back then, but really taught you a lot about bow hunting and real hunting scenarios. So it was good classes it was fun. It was a money maker for the clubs, but it also taught bow hunters how to shoot better before the season. So I was involved in quite a bit of that.
Was this something that you did prior to having kids?
I had actually they started when my kids were probably, my daughter's born in 89. So about the time my kids were born is when the 3D target archery courses really picked up, but they did it before that. And I bow hunted since I graduated high school. So I did the courses and the archery even before I had kids.
As an instructor?
Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, my son, which that was my grandson you met, my son, when he was his age, probably 6 or 7, he would follow me to these classes and he knew every answer by heart because he was my little second-hand man,
Hmm.
right-hand man right there. And I would make simulated blood out of Cairo syrup and a little bit of laundry detergent and to make a perfect blood. And he would help me lay that trail out. And we would actually take milk duds and we would strategically put them on the ground and then tell the kids while they're tracking the deer, that's deer poop. And I'd
Eh,
pick up one of them milk duds and I'd squeeze it. They're like, ew. Then I'd toss it in my mouth and tell them, yeah, that's pretty fresh. It totally grossed the kids out. Then I let them off the hook. It was really just a milk dud,
yeah.
but we had good times. And like I said, my son, by the time because in Michigan, you had a minimum age. You couldn't bow hunt till you're 10. So by the time he was 10, he knew every answer to the hunter safety courses because he'd sat through so many of them with me, and he was my little helper setting the classes up. So, and he killed his first deer at age 11 on his very first bow hunt. He shot an 8-point buck.
Yeah.
So it took me 4 years to kill my first deer with a bow because I didn't know what I was doing. And my son killed one the first day he went bow hunting. So, and my grandson too. He's 8 now. Last year he killed his first buck with a rifle, and then this year he's already killed a buck and 2 does with a crossbow and 2 with a rifle.
Hmm.
So that's pretty impressive for his young age.
Yeah.
But
I'm finding a lot
Yeah.
of people introducing their kids pretty young.
yeah, I mean, down here, like in Illinois, there is no minimum age.
Oh, sure. I
Long
just
as-
mean as a parent.
Yeah, well, I think the whole idea of this anti-gun hysteria is going around the country. I mean, kids will find guns. It's
Mhm.
how do you train them early on, the dangers of them. And I don't care if my kid finds a gun, he knows exactly how to handle it, or my grandson. But my granddaughter, she shot an AR-15 when she just barely big enough to hold it, but she was strong enough. And we always believe in teaching our kids safely, but young. That way it gets that curiosity out of the way so they don't get hurt. But
Right.
we still we still, respect the firearms and keep them safe as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's definitely one of my big priorities is teaching a healthy respect for the firearms.
Yep.
Like the one that I have on my bedside, it's Firearm Safe, I think is the brand.
mhm.
And it's a I'm blanking on the term, biometric. So only my
Oh, okay.
thumbprint can take it out. But
Okay.
visually, it looks like it's just sitting in a holster. So they can't
Yeah.
actually pull it out, but they see it all the time. And it surprises me that none of them bother to try to touch it. They know that that's off limits.
Yeah. And how old are they?
My youngest has just turned 1.
Yeah.
My daughter is 3, almost 4, and my oldest son, just turned 5. Or I'm sorry, is it 5? No, 6. He just turned 6.
Yeah. It's funny because even I have a son and a daughter, and I always tell everybody my daughter went to med school, and I say the reason she did is because she was so intrigued that we butcher all of our own deer, always
Yeah.
have, that when I would skin a deer, she just wanted to know what's inside the head, what's inside, and I literally, and even in high school, her friends would be grossed out, but she'd be like, "Can you take the brain out? Can you take the eye out? I just want to examine them." And
Yeah.
then later on, she went to medical school. I said it's because of her interest in biology back then.
Hmm.
So, bye bye. See you later. Yeah, but yeah,
Has she tried to? There's like a doughy substance behind the eye. Has she tried to eat that?
nope. Like the fat that's really good that
Yeah.
they say is really good for you. Yeah, we watched the Alone series. And they eat that the fatty tissue behind the eye because has the highest fat content.
Hmm.
But now they've eaten almost every kind. Both my kids have eaten almost every kind of wild game there is
Yeah.
because like our local conservation club would put on wild game dinners. And when they do that, everybody brings their specialty and you try to get the widest variety of game out there. So I've literally eaten everything from porcupine to raccoon to rabbits, everything. And my kids have as well. In fact, my grandson here, he's like, I never eat a squirrel. I'm like,
Hmm.
you haven't had a squirrel? So I had to take him hunting, and we went and got a squirrel and fried it up, and now he wants to go squirrel hunting all the time.
Yeah. That's one thing I thought about introducing my oldest to now, because we got them all over our yard.
Oh yeah,
That's something he could easily do himself.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's my dad. He was not really. He was a coon hunter. He deer hunted once in a while, but it was more of a social thing for him and the guys.
Right.
But now he took off. I come out from a family of six, 5 brothers and sisters, and all of us kids went hunting for rabbits and squirrels in southern Michigan while we were kids. It was just normal to go, and so we all learned how to hunt small game. And like I say, Dad never really did much gun or he didn't do any bow hunting until after I learned how. But he would go gun hunting every now and then and shoot a deer. But that turned out to be my biggest passion is bow hunting.
Right.
So
I was curious earlier, when you said you chose the wrong hand, which I guess ended up turning out to be right. The first time I tried using a bow, my uncle handed me, it was a right-handed bow, but I started pulling it back like it was a left-handed bow, and he asked me, what am I doing? And that's what felt natural, is that particular
sure.
muscle, I guess, to pull it that way. So I
What?
convinced myself, and I'm the right eye dominant. So I convinced myself at that point, though, because it was almost like when someone pushes you and you step, you have a certain foot that goes back. So in my head,
Yeah.
that's what it was. So I tried being a left-handed bow person, kind of got made fun of by friends. And then at some point I realized I can't really hit anything because I can't really aim with my left eye. So I'm now having to kind of start over and train myself with right.
Well, what's interesting is that I shot the wrong bow for so long that I got good at it, and it was later. It was many years later when I become a hunter safety instructor that, first of all, the instructors, the fellow instructors, taught me how to, you've seen this right here. You hold it, make the triangle,
Right.
and then you put it out in front of you like this and look through it with both eyes open. You look at something in that triangle. You close one eye. If that object is still there, that's your dominant eye. If you close the other eye and that object moved, that's not your dominant eye. I didn't know about that.
Mm-hmm.
And in that firearm hunter safety course, the guy who shot the trap, because all the kids would go shoot trap, they shoot 22, they shoot a shotgun, they shoot bow and arrow. The guy who shot the skeet, the clay pigeons, after class one day, he's like, hey, Dad, come out here and try this. I'd never done it. And I couldn't hit nothing. He's like, well, you're holding the gun the wrong way. He said, switch your hands. And it felt really weird to hold it this hand. He's now try it. And I hit it every time. I couldn't believe it. It felt so weird. But
Yeah.
He said, you're basically looking over the gun to look with your right eye. And he made me switch hands. And then my eye just lined right up the stock, right correctly. And I just pulled and shot. And even though it still felt weird because I had to make myself hold the gun the correct way, but I was taught the wrong way. And that's why we always encouraged in the firearm classes and the bowhunter classes, the parents would come in there and take their kids, and the parents a lot of times were supposedly deer hunters and they were knowledgeable. We always said, please, Mom and Dad, sit down and take this class with your kid. We know you're already certified, take it anyway. And they would learn so much that they always would thank us afterwards, because you can't teach your kids ethics if you don't know them or have them, and you can't teach them properly if you're not taught properly. But so many kids or people are taught by their parents who do not know, so they're being taught the wrong way. And that's why we always encourage the parents to take the classes with the kids. And it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So, yeah. And, they always say success breeds success. When I wanted to really start shooting bigger bucks, I started hanging out with people who really understood big bucks. It's still a big learning curve, but I believe you wrap yourself around people who share the same sports and the same values you do, and it makes you better at it as well.
Yeah. So what is when it comes to like calls, what do you suggest or train for that? Or do you believe in blind calling? What about when
Or bow or deer hunting?
for deer hunting? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I just saw an article today on Facebook. Someone said, "Hey, if you could only take 3 items in the woods with you besides your bow, what would you take?"
Hmm.
And I was surprised how many people did not say a deer call. I literally have, and I've shot around 400-ish deer with gun and bow, and I would never go to the deer woods without a grunt call. And most of the calls I can make with my mouth is anyway,
Hmm.
but a snort wheeze or a grunt call is by far the most deadly call there is. And so, yeah, I definitely use a grunt call. Now, sparingly use it. You can blind call once in a while, but um, you have to be very sparingly with it. And I wait till I see the deer. If a deer's coming, why would you ever call? Just let
Sure.
it do it. But I definitely call if he's going the other direction. But I watch that body language, watch those ears and that tail, and that tells you everything about when to call and when not to call. Um, so yeah, I definitely believe in deer calls.
Is so you mentioned the once very, very much once in a while for the blind calling. Is that with a grunt?
Yeah. So what I'll do, and it depends on the time of the year, but early season, I always have the call with me, but I almost never call,
Hmm.
never use a grunt call hardly early. I might use a doe bleat, because one of my biggest bucks I killed you calling the doe in instead of the buck because the buck totally blew me off. He was breathing the doe every couple steps down this big ridge coming right to me, but I shot and missed,
Oh.
and the doe started walking away, and he just totally ignored me. He just followed her, and I grunted. And earlier I tickled the antlers together. He looked my way, but he would not leave the doe. Why would you? He done got the prize. But finally, I'm like, I just did a light mew, a fawn call.
Hmm.
And man, that doe turned around and just started walking right to me. And I'm like, I can't believe I'm getting a second chance. And I pulled back and I drilled him. He's non-typical 15 pointer, just a big old brute of a buck,
Yeah.
you know. So, but yeah, I don't call too much early season. Um, but once the rut kicks in, right after daylight, I wait until, for the first 30 minutes or so, I just wait to see what may come by. If nothing does, I might do a random grunt. I'll tickle the antlers together just lightly, a little bit. Um, and then I'll wait an hour or so. Maybe I'll get a little more aggressive, do it again. But then I'll pretty much quit because a buck will sometimes take 30 minutes before he ever comes to you, whether it's a grunt call or rattling. A lot of people think rattling is a Texas thing, but that's the one of my second favorite calls. And I always have a set of rattling antlers with me during the, last probably, and I know it's probably different in North Carolina than in Illinois because of, I think we probably have more, uh, problem. I don't know if we have a better buck to doe ratio, but they seem to be pretty aggressive deer. And I
Right.
think we probably have a better age class. Um,
Yeah, they're pretty young here. There's
yeah.
a there's so many doe that um, some farms actually consider them a nuisance.
Oh yeah. And we had that in Michigan as well. And like, why would a buck respond to antlers or grunt call when there's 6 does standing there waiting to be bred?
Yeah.
And that's why, I manage a big farm in Pike County, Illinois for the owners of my company. And he's like, I was telling him how on my buddy's farm, he's got 400 acres, how we try to kill 15 does every year, no matter what. Minimum of 15 does. He's like, should I do that here? And he's got 1,000 acres. I'm like, yeah, you have so many deer, they're everywhere. I said, you can't grow big bucks with this many does.
Hmm.
You got to take some of them out of the herd. So, yeah, um, they were worried about, they thought more the better, but that's, you know, the bucks don't have to respond to anything. They don't have to be on their feet very often. So your success rate's actually going down with you when you have too many does.
Right.
But
Do you ever use the sticks in the bag, or is it
yeah,
always actual antlers
no,
for you?
I prefer the actual antlers, but they're cumbersome. In fact,
Yeah.
I'm probably straying way off, but I killed my third biggest buck with a bow this year.
Hmm.
But a week earlier from the same tree stand, I had an absolute giant, big buck, big frame with big sticker. I mean, like a big sticker that long coming off his G2. But what happened was I had these big old antlers and it was quiet. And because I could write a book on how not to kill a big buck. So I'm looking around, make sure nothing's coming. I reach behind me, I pick up the antlers, and I just pick them up, and I'm setting down, and I have my bow pinched between my legs, my knees. So
Hmm.
I reach around to grab the antlers, and I look, because I heard something 10 yards under me. A doe come running in with this giant buck behind her and another big 10-point behind him.
Oh.
And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? He's right there. They're at 10 yards and the doe buggered. And I think it's because the other antler was dangling off they're tied together. I
Hmm.
think she saw it and she just startled. She ran 10 yards. The big guy, neither buck had a clue I was there. And I'm trying to reach behind me and hang these antlers up without them clanking on the ladder as quietly as I can and get my bow because it's pinched between my legs and I'm grabbing it with my right hand, but I have to pick it up, switch hands, and draw. All that time, the buck is just walking straight away, the big one. And he just walked right out of my life. I looked over in the probably 140 class 10-point. The other one was still standing there. I'm like, no way, I'm not shooting that deer. Not after seeing that one.
Yeah.
And then they both walked out. So yeah, you can get in trouble with antlers in your hand, and that's where probably the rattle bag would have been a little better. But it was just a rookie mistake of getting caught with your hands caught, and they literally ran right up on me that quickly. But I was redeemed exactly a week later from the same stand, and I killed a 163-inch 10-point.
Hmm.
So he was a good one. But
Do you find benefit in having a partner handling things like the rattling?
I almost no. I mean, it would probably work, but I just tend to be I hunt by myself most of the time. I mean, in my opinion, I watch all these hunting videos and the Drurys from the Midwest and a lot of these guys, and they hunt, because they have a cameraman, and they mostly hunt from enclosed elevated stands, and you can get away with more movement then. But in my opinion, it's hard enough for one person to cover his scent and to to sneak into a stand and outwit a buck by yourself, and then you double that with two people. I
Hmm.
just don't see it happening very often. So I don't. I have we have I have a couple of hunting buddies who I hunt with, but they go their way and I go my way.
Right.
But now I do like say I take my grandson and my son. Will go hunting, but only time we're together is if one of us is setting with my grandson. Other than that, we hunt separately.
Right.
So, yeah.
You ever use those? I can't remember what they're called, but the little cans. You put your finger on the hole in the bottom.
Oh yeah.
Flip it.
Yep. Actually, I've killed several deer using that little can.
Yeah.
Anything. I mean, if nothing else, it's a curiosity. But that sounds like a doe mew.
Right.
It's a higher pitched. But I tend to actually, instead of flipping it, I don't know if you ever tried this, but I blow it.
Oh, interesting.
Because then you can get what do you call it? Flex. Basically, you can go yeah. So you
Yeah.
you can stretch that sound out so it sounds better, and you can control the volume of it and how long it is. Where this, you kind of have the mercy of how it falls, and you
Right.
just flip it. So I don't even bother flipping. I just put it to my mouth and I blow in it. It makes a better sound. Yeah, try that.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll have to experiment with that. Is that mostly for does though?
It's a doe sound, but it attracts bucks because it mimics a doe in heat. Basically, they
okay.
grunt like a buck does, but there it's a much higher pitch, quite a bit higher. So yeah, sometimes you'll hear a real high pitch sound like a young buck, and a lot of times that's actually a doe. Because when they come in estrus, they're looking for the buck just as much as the buck is looking for them a lot of times. So, I mean, I do a lot of mock scrapes.
Mhm.
I run like almost right around 100 cameras, trail cameras. So I set up mock scrapes everywhere. And a lot of times I'll have them on video. So you can learn a lot about the interaction and how, to me, the doe is more important than the buck. Because they teach those fawns. I use like a hemp rope or piece of vine, and they will teach those fawns to come up to that mock scrape. And I have mock scrapes. Actually, I wrote an article in North American Whitetail magazine, a 2-part article called "The Killing Tree," and I literally 25 years. Well, I told you the buck that I shot the non-typical, and I called the doe in and shot the buck. That was in 1998. That same tree that I found that year that I killed that buck that had a big rub on it has been rubbed every single year since then. And now the tree has been rubbed so many years that parts of the tree died. So I actually took a chainsaw and cut down another tree, and it was a tree that kind of leaned out like this. And I replaced the dead one with a live one, strapped it to the base of the tree, took a cedar post and put it on the other end to hold it up. And I've made mock scrapes there every year since just to keep it going. And it's this year still, it was an active deer killing tree.
That's interesting. I wonder if there's something in the ground causing like an odor for an attractant or something.
No, I think what it is, it's where two valleys kind of come together, and it's kind of like a saddle, and there's a creek right there. And I think it's just there's like there's two big valleys that come down, two ridges that come down, and it all merges in a small creek bottom. And I think it's just a natural spot for deer as they traverse through that farm. They run those ridges, and it's just a good meeting place. We're kind of like a funnel. And I just got lucky and found it years ago and been hunting it ever since.
Yeah.
Almost never run out of battery. Means I'm talking too much.
Okay.
Well,
I know the cold can mess with it. I was doing one of these on a fishing boat that someone invited me out on, and I've done these outside during the summer, and I have overheating issues. But in the cold, it seems to drain the battery, so my phone died very quickly.
Yeah, I keep a battery pack in my backpack when I'm bow hunting because the cold will definitely, the Midwest, it'll drain it down pretty quick.
Yeah.
Setting out in a tree stand.
That actually happened to me just a couple weeks back. I was in the tree stand, and it was like the coldest it had ever been, to the point that the water bottle I brought with me froze while I was in the tree stand. And I ran out of hand warmers, so I wasn't able to put them in my boots. So my feet were just getting numb. And at some point my phone died, and I was starting to feel really stiff. And I'm like, I'm going to get stuck up here, frozen. I can't call anyone to come get me. So I'm going to get out of the tree now. And if a deer comes while I do, oh, well, it's not happening today.
That doesn't happen too much in North Carolina, does it? Very often?
No, to get that cold? No, not too much. Since I've lived here, I haven't seen any snow. It does seem like it gets cold enough to snow, but every time the rain comes, it heats back up. It's probably coming up from Florida or something like that. So it's more an occasional thing, but enough that I've definitely, like at the end of every deer season, I'm always like, okay, I'm going to get this piece of warm clothing for next year, and this piece and just keep adding to it. And I makes me look huge when have you ever seen the Christmas Story?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, with Randy. Can't put my arms down.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the bad part about bow hunting late season. It's funny because my buddy and I, we're about the same age, and we've been running our deer camp for 25 years or so. And it's funny because I used to come down here from Michigan to bow hunt at his cabin, and now I've moved down here. And our kids, were babies when we met, and now both of our sons are basically taking over and dragging the deer out for us. you know. We're still shooting the bigger bucks, but the kids are there. You know, my son, he's in his mid-30s, and my buddy's son, he's only like 19, but it's funny how they've taken over. We've been doing it so long that they're taking over the heavy work, you know.
Yeah.
But we set every year close to 200 tree stands on different farms that we hunt, and it's still, he and I still do lion's share of it.
Yeah. Is what was I guess when you started deciding to have a family and I'm assuming had intentions to bring your kids up in the great outdoors, what was the kind of mindset you had then?
It really, I wouldn't say it was really a mindset. It was just going to be a natural progression. Now, because we lived in the country, I always hunted, and I just assumed my kids would. Now, because I'm fanatical about bow hunting, I was very aware not to push my sport on my kids too much and let them do whatever they wanted to do. In fact, my daughter, she hunted a couple times when she was young, but just decided it wasn't for her, and that's fine, you know. But she understands hunting. Like her son now, they live in Seattle, Washington, so they're city people now. And so her son is 13, and he's never been hunting, and he got to come to Papa's house for 2 weeks at a time the last 2 summers. And all of this outdoor stuff is so new to him. He really didn't know anything about anything, but he wanted to learn. In fact, we took him fishing. You know, we took him out to check trail cameras during the summer, and he just had the best time, but everything was brand new to him. But to my kids, it came so natural, and to my grandson, who lives here as well, that they just didn't think anything about it. It was so novel to him. And my grandson who lives here, who's killed several deer now, he's like, "What's he getting so excited about?" He just didn't understand it. I said, "Well, if you went to the big city and he took you to see all the city sites, that would be new and impressive and interesting to you. It's a whole different world." But I always knew, because I was raised to be self-sufficient, you know, to learn how to farm and hunt and grow gardens. I always knew I would teach my kids that. Even my daughter, when she started dating, she had to show her boyfriend how to jumpstart a car, you know. But it's certain just basic things in life that, as a parent, you should be teaching those kids. In fact, my grandson and I, yesterday, first time I ever did it, I volunteered because I was a firefighter for 18 or 20 years, volunteer. We went and did the bell ringing at a grocery store yesterday for the Salvation Army. Now, my company volunteered to do the whole week. And so they would ask their employees, let them leave work and go for an hour at a time and do the bell ringing and collect money for Salvation Army. My grandson knew I had done it earlier in the day, and he was so excited. He wanted to do it. So I called the shop and said, "Hey, I'd like to volunteer again for like the 4 to 5 time slot after work yesterday." And my grandson went with me, and he was so excited and he felt so good doing this. You know, he had people coming in the store, and as he was singing Christmas songs, that he was bringing so much joy to these people, they were giving money hand over fist to him to put into the little, you know, donation bucket. And I said, "Okay, now be humble though. You're doing this for a reason, and understand why you're doing it." You know, and I think we should always, as parents, you know, you talk about teaching your kids to be godly, you know, to treat people the way you want to be treated as well.
Right.
And so we try to instill that. And even with hunting, it's easy. I can remember my dad, when I shot a bird when I was a little kid with my BB gun, he made me cook the bird and eat it. And I thought it was disgusting, but he said, "You don't kill nothing for no reason, you know, and you understand life and death." Now, I never made my grandson shoot a bird or kill a bird, made him eat a bird that he might have killed, but he's never done it.
Right.
because we taught him the lesson of what, the value of life.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think it was the podcast I did just before this had a very similar story of being forced to eat I think he said it was a crow that he had shot.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I shot a robin, which is the Michigan state bird, which was illegal anyway. And Dad was like, you should not have done that.
Yeah.
Guess what you're going to do now? So, yeah, I learned some lessons early on.
Could you imagine if that's what game wardens did? Like, you weren't supposed to take that, now you got to eat it.
Oh, yeah, well.
I guess in it'd be a good thing in certain circumstances. I guess that would backfire.
Yeah, I'll eat that deer, I guess. Sure.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Well, it's funny because now my dad was not, I was raised in a religious family. My dad, not so much. He was kind of a alcoholic. And I can remember when I was a young kid, and I shot my first rabbit. It was out of the backseat of an old Chevy station wagon going down the road. But back then, people hunted for food. And the boys would drive the back road in like January in Michigan and shoot rabbits out with a shotgun and take them home, feed the family. And I can remember going to school for show and tell and telling the teacher and the kids what I did for the weekend and how I shot my very first rabbit I ever shot was out of the backseat of a Chevy station wagon. And I'm like, Dad's a wonder you didn't have the game warden called on you, because that would have been illegal. But I didn't know that at the time. I was
right.
So I always made sure that I taught my grandson wanted to shoot it while we were bow hunting. He wanted to shoot a turkey. I'm like, we don't have a turkey tag, but there's a lot of them out here. That's not the point. So we all have a responsibility to teach them the right. Yeah. So I try to do that.
What was, I guess, your son's introduction to hunting or just the great outdoors in general? Was it kind of based off of kind of going through those classes with you that you mentioned?
Even before then, I mean, he always saw me bring home hunt, rabbits, birds, deer before he was old enough to hunt. And so he would see me clean the rabbits and, we'd talk about it. And he was at the age where that's when the hunting videos became the rage. If you remember, everybody had their own VHS hunting videos. And so, he was raised around watching hunting videos and being in the outdoors anyway. So the introduction just came so natural that I think he kind of expected it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he got his first he started off with a BB gun, just like most boys do, and target shooting in the yard. And then he wanted to learn how to hunt with it, or a gun. So we started him off then with a little 410 shotgun. But that's kind of how he got into it. And it wasn't very long before he got to a bow and arrow. So, yeah.
Is it a bit of a similar story with your grandson?
Same thing, yeah. Now, my grandson, because then his dad was in the Army for a few years. So it took Dad a couple years after he got out of the Army to get back into hunting, just trying to get acclimated to civilian life. So grandson would hang out with me a lot. We're just a couple of houses down from each other anyway. So he stays at Papa's house, and my pole barn, if you look at my barn, I have 3 sides of the walls are filled with antlers and deer mounts. So as an infant, he was just raised with seeing deer heads and deer antlers and electric hoist in the barn, and we process all of our deer. So as an infant, he was just exposed to it all the time.
Right.
So it just came natural for him as well. In fact, he started, he's the youngest kid in our family of any of the children to kill a deer at age 7. Because it was my son who bragged for years that he killed his deer at age 11 with a bow. And I didn't kill my first one till I was 22 because I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I killed my first deer at 18 with a shotgun, but with a bow, it was 22. And then my grandson shot his first one at age 7. So he's pretty proud that he has the title of shooting the deer at the youngest age in whole family.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And he's very gregarious. He will sit right here and tell you the whole story on his hunts, and he will say, "Okay, everybody," because I have my own Facebook page too,
Yeah.
and it's called the Outdoors 24/7 365, and my page is similar to yours. A friend of mine from Alabama started the page for me because he loved to hear my deer stories, and then he's passed away since from cancer. So I've taken over the page, but basically that page is to share hunting stories, experiences with family and friends, and to never shame anyone, but to um, give advice and tips to help others get into hunting. So that's what our page is about.
Yeah. And what was the name of that page?
It's called The Outdoors 24/7 365. Yep. I have to send you a link to it.
Yeah, I'll make sure to put it in the description for people to find. Is it just on Facebook, or you on any other socials? Since we're
No,
on
it's
topic.
just on Facebook. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does your son hunt with a bow now? I assume.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What is...
he switched from a bow to a crossbow just because he has had some kind of injury to his eye while he's in the military, so he can focus with a scope, but he can't focus on like pins as well. So he switched to a crossbow with a scope, and he's very good with that. In fact, my grandson's first deer was with a crossbow, but since then, because I want him to learn how to shoot one with a compound. So since he got his first deer with a crossbow, we put the crossbow away. Now he's building up his strength to learn how to shoot a bow, compound bow. In fact, and I've switched after shooting my buck with a bow this fall. Now I put my compound away, and my goal is to kill a deer before the end of the season with a recurve. So that's my new goal for the rest of the year.
Have you done that before?
Nope. I've tried. I gave up. I would just get frustrated when I couldn't hit anything.
Yeah.
And my son and I both went to recurves with no sights, strictly traditional, and basically just like you throw a baseball, you just aim and we've been practicing. And so actually that's where I was at tonight, bow hunting with the recurve, and I'm not hoping, I'm going to do it. I'll get one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that more challenging because it's not as consistent, or just because you have to hold it?
Both.
Harder?
And plus you have to draw it while the deer is standing there, where a modern compound, as the deer is coming, in fact, I tell everybody, draw that bow, draw it, hang on to it. And you can hang on to it. And you can hang on to it quite a long time, where a recurve, you can't even draw it until the deer till you're ready to shoot. So that deer's, and you want to shoot at 10 yards or 20 yards max. And so that deer is right under you, and you have to be able to draw and quickly, not even draw until you get the right angle, and then quickly draw. As soon as the cut touches the corner of your mouth, you let go. And so that's a lot more challenging, just because the deer will bust you moving. That really long recurve bow compared to that compact, compound bow. So
would that allow for a quicker reload on a second arrow if you had missed and you still had a shot?
No, I don't think so. In fact, because my quiver is hanging up in a tree, I don't have it on my back or anything. It's actually the quiver off my compound bow. I just stuck it on a limb, so I would have to try to reach and get that arrow, and it doesn't. Like the nocks don't snap on the bowstring quite as tight.
Right.
So like a couple of weeks ago, I tried to shoot a doe that snuck up behind me, and I literally picked up the bow, and the arrow just fell off the arrow rest, and went down the ladder and landed on the ground. Didn't even spook the deer, but I only had 2 arrows, and she was standing right under me. So I'm like, well, I have to let her walk because I cannot move and get that arrow without her seeing me right there at the base of my tree.
Right.
I think I was playing on my phone when she snuck up on me, and that's what happens. Are focused.
Yeah. So you use the same arrows then?
No, actually I have these they look like cedar arrows, but they're actually carbon, but they have fletches.
Mhm.
And then I have these Wenzel Woodsman broadheads. You know, Gene and Barry Wenzel?
Sounds familiar.
Those two guys are from Hamilton, Montana originally. They're twin brothers, and they're like, I think they're probably the best traditional bow hunters ever. And they've written several books on killing big bucks, but they both of them kill them with recurve bows, and they're good. I mean, they've very knowledgeable, and but they come out with their own heavy duty 3-blade sharpenable broadhead, cut on impact broadhead. And that just goes good with the whole traditional feel. Even though
Right.
it's not a cedar arrow, it's a high performance carbon arrow that looks like wood. And that has fletchings instead of plastic vanes. So that's what I'm shooting with, just bare bow, just the bow and the arrow. So
what's you said it has an issue with the clipping on the back.
the
Is
knock
that
itself, it's just you can pay more money for a better knock. A lot of people have the lighted knocks, and they just have that little bump on the end of them, and they kind of snap on the arrow. Where this one just sets on there, and you take your finger gloves and you hold it. But it doesn't, it would just come right off. It doesn't snap on your string. I almost want to take a piece of tape and wrap it around the string right there just to make it a little tighter fit.
okay?
But yeah, it doesn't stay on the string very well. So inexperience on my part of being a brand new recurve hunter, I just let it fall on the ground, didn't grab it correctly, and the deer walked up. So lessons learned. I said I could write a book on how not to kill a big buck.
Right. So I guess that's more of a recurve issue than possibly your particular bow.
Yeah. But my bow, I have lighted knocks, carbon arrows, and they snap on there pretty clear. And I use the release, so I've never had an arrow fall off. It's just
for the compound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could happen, but I've just never had it happen. You got the overdraw with the trophy ridge arrow rest with the guard over the top. It just almost never falls off. So that's not an issue I was really looking out for. So lessons learned.
What's the average distance when you've taken the shot? The average distance you've seen between a doe and a buck that they I guess run after the shot before they expire.
With a bow?
With the bow, yeah.
I mean, that varies a lot, but with a good double long shot, 75 to 100 yards, be about max.
Okay.
I've seen lots of them fall within sight. I've heard lots of them fall just out of sight, but I'm saying 75 yards to 100 yards is about average for even a double long shot. They can run pretty quickly. Yeah.
So like in my yard, I only live on an acre, but I have deer coming through the back, and then there's a forest behind all the houses here. I'm assuming if I hit one with a bow, it's most likely going to end up behind a neighbor's house.
I've had that happen before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Had them drop right in people's backyards. But some of your best hunting spots are right on the edge of town. So I love those spots like that. But you always got to kind of plan ahead just in case a deer does that. I can remember this lady she only had 2 acres. And she's like, why do you want to hunt this? It's only 2 acres. I said, a deer's hoof is only 2 inches. That's plenty. 2 acres is plenty. And I said, just look at where you're at. I said, see that big patch of woods across the road? Yeah. Comes right up to your house on that side of the road. See your house right here in this little strip of woods where your house is? And there's open field on both sides. Well, there's open field on this side and houses on that side. I said, they cross the road right here because it's a funnel.
Yeah.
2 patches of wood meet right at the road. They cross right there because it's open on either side of it. And I can remember sitting in my tree stand, listening to her phone ring in her house because my tree stand was so close to her house. As the buck crossed the road, walked between me and her house when I shot it, and it ran past her house into the neighbor's backyard and fell over dead. So I had to go to the neighbor's house and knock on the door and ask if I retrieved my buck. So yeah. But it was a great spot to hunt.
Do you find when you hit them with the bow, if they're facing left, that's the direction they're going to go, or is it completely random? They could end up spinning around and going anywhere.
I think they basically try to go away from that noise. So, I mean, their reflexes is so fast, and I don't care how quiet your bow is, they hear that. They hear your tree stand barely squeak. They hear everything, that motion, and I think they just go away from that sound. And generally they kind of go in the direction they were facing, but as soon as they launch and take off, I've seen them do a complete circle. I've had one come shoot it. It made a big circle and literally hit the tree and died at the base of my tree. It made a complete circle and died and hit my tree so hard I thought I was going to break an antler off. And died. I mean, once they're hit lethally, I mean, part of what I taught in the bow and red class is if that arrow hits the dirt one time, it's done.
Right.
Learn how to sharpen your broadheads or replace them. If you're shaving with a sharp razor, you don't feel when you get cut, but when that razor is dull, it hurts. When that razor is so sharp, it zips through that deer so fast, it don't even know it's hit. It just knows something happened and they heard a sound, they run. I've seen them run, stop, and continue to eat, graze, or continue to chase a doe, not even know they're dead yet. And then they hit the ground, they're dead before they even know it. They don't even kick because they literally pass out.
Yeah.
Which makes it a very humane way to hunt a deer. But that's how effective they are, a sharp broadhead. And I've seen many deer go down faster with a bow than a gun, unless you paralyze them. In fact, a heart shot deer, whether it's a gun or a bow, tends to run farther than a lung shot deer. Because I think that they feel that through, probably going through the heart quicker than they do just deflating their lungs and they just go unconscious.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
But it's all about quick and humane.
Yep. Absolutely. Is there so going back to your son and your grandson, or I guess anybody in your family, kind of like a bucket list hunt that any of even yourself are interested in?
You mean a type of hunt?
Yeah, they're like somewhere that you want to really hunt or a particular animal you want to go after.
Yeah, I'd like to go. I went once to Montana elk hunting and didn't have success, and I'd love to go back to elk hunt, and my grandson wants to go elk hunting. I don't think nothing beats the thrill of a whitetail, and that's the most popular game animal. It's also the most plentiful, so most people hunt them, but I think elk hunting would be really cool. Even, we're planning a trip to Alaska here in a couple of years.
Yeah.
And I would really love to kill a moose.
Oh,
just to experience the Alaskan wild. In fact, I have a buddy who was in the military who bow hunted with me here in Illinois, and now he lives in Alaska. He's like, Dan, when you coming? He's been to the Arctic Circle and hunted musk oxen and almost every game species up there. And he still sends me pictures. He's like, because you have to have a guide to hunt Alaska. Well, a resident can be your guide. And he's like, it's going to be cheap if you come and hunt with me. So that's something I really would like to do.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be happy just hunting a deer in Alaska.
Oh, yeah. Except for the grizzlies there. But I'd like to hunt a grizzly with a bow as well. But the Sika, it's the Sika up there in Alaska, the whitetail up there, that subspecies. I remember reading an article called Dinner Bell Bears. And basically, they're so conditioned up there on that Kodiak Sika deer, I think they call them, on the Kodiak Island. People go up there and hunt those the deer up there. And when the bears hear a rifle shot, they know it's a free gut pile. And they go towards that direction. So they say, you got to be very careful deer hunting up there because the bears are so conditioned. When they hear a rifle shot, they think they're going to get a free meal. And there's been a lot of bear encounters because of it. So it's something, but that's part of the thrill of hunting that, the scary part that, there's you're not at the top of the food chain anymore when you go out
Right.
there.
And I think
So
it's one of the, at least in American territory, it's one of the last somewhat untouched areas that you can still go
yeah,
to.
yeah. And I just love to explore. That's why I've always liked the outdoors. And I love looking at new properties. I'm always looking for a new property to hunt just because to me, killing the deer is fun, but figuring the deer out is the best part.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to pattern a deer, a big buck, not just a deer. A big buck is a whole different species. And when you say, "Hey, I'm going to be a big buck hunter instead of a deer hunter," and that gets really tough. But it's that challenge to, I think I was talking to my boss tonight on the phone while I was in my tree stand. And he was talking about the outfitter beside them, how many deer they killed. And I said, well, we can't have big bucks over there in your farm until we get their age class up higher.
Right.
And I told him, I said, I think I'm at 44 bucks I passed already this year, just waiting for a specific buck. And that takes a lot of discipline, but, and that's not for everybody. So what do you want out of hunting? If you're just there to fill your freezer, that's easy to do. Beginning hunters shoot a lot of everything. Don't even be picky at all until you have 40 or 50 kills under your belt. Then you can, if you want a extra challenge, go that route. That like I said, my hunting page, we don't shame anybody if they shoot a little deer or a little buck or a doe. Because everybody is in the sport for a different reason. So
Yeah. So when you spend time in the tree stand with your grandson, do you find that to be a good time for communication, like to get almost personal about things that on his mind?
yeah, especially because we have some elevated hunting towers, so we can set in there, and we have heaters in there, so they're pretty nice, and he can get comfortable, and we take the focus off of just killing a deer, but making memories.
Mm-hmm.
So, anytime, he lost his sister. She's only 9 years old. She died of cancer 2 years ago now.
I'm sorry.
He was 5, or he was 7 and she was 9. So yeah, that's still fresh in our minds. And so even though he's a very happy-go-lucky kid, he still thinks of his sister a lot. And my wife teaches at a private Catholic school, and so he goes there as well. I'm not Catholic myself, neither is she, but she teaches there. But we all believe in God, and so that we try to get him to open up and discuss his feelings about his sister and about where she's at and things like that. And yeah, in the tree stand is a time for lightheartedness and for any kind of serious talks that we have. And he and I cherish that moments. In fact, he's like, when's Papa going to be home so he and I can go hunting? And it's not always about just killing. It's about spending that time together and making those memories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How is his connection to God at this age?
Very good. In fact, I'd say because he was raised, because his grandmother, my wife teaches in a private school, we convinced my son to raise both of their kids also in a Christian school. And yeah, he knows God. He's very humble, and he believes in God, and he understands that there's certain ways you should act,
Mm-hmm.
and be respectful. So he definitely he has a good relationship. In fact, he questions why Pops isn't in church as much as he is. So I could probably do better.
Good for him.
Yes.
What on that note, where would you say you see God in the great outdoors?
God created all of it. And I believe, it says in the Bible that God gave us dominion over the earth to hunt, take up our bows and arrows and hunt, but we're also the caretakers. But every single thing, and we look at everything. I write a lot of articles, and I just wrote an article about coming out of the woods after dark one evening and noticing with my flashlight as I'm walking, all these little bitty glowing eyes across the CRP field. And I'm like, all these years, I'm 61 now. I said, all these years I've seen those, but it wasn't until this night that I stopped and took my light and walked up to every single one of them. And every single one of them was a wolf spider. And that surprised me. And I wrote this article about wolf spiders and how I'm this old and I just now realized all those little glowing things you would see walking out of the woods. Every single one of those little bit glowing eyes are wolf spiders. And now there's probably other creatures too, insects and what have you. But I said, isn't that interesting how those wolf spiders are going out every night doing their wolf spider thing? And I said, God created every one of those, and we're all in this together. We're just part of this whole ecosystem. And everyone's like, man, that's pretty heavy, Dan. But it's just acknowledging everything that's created. God created all of it for us to enjoy. And it's just amazing. So
Yeah.
he knows that, and he will always know it. And I think he gives you a little bit of reverence. And a lot of my writings are reverence towards things. And, I'll climb up in a tree stand. I do my best writing and I'll miss deer because I'm sitting here writing a story about something that just inspired me while I walk to the tree stand or sitting in a stand. That's where I do my deepest thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I'm closer to God. I say I'm 18 feet closer to God every day.
Mm-hmm.
And we have our conversations, and I don't necessarily sit in church as often as I should, but I'm that much closer to God, and I talk to him just like he's my best friend, my hunting partner. Right. So everybody handles it in their way. And yeah.
What about your son?
My son, not so much. My son and daughter both were raised in church as kids. Because I was raised in church every Sunday and weekdays too. I was Pentecostal. But both my son and daughter never really embraced it too much. And I think when he lost his daughter to cancer, it made us all a little bit mad. And I argued with God why he would take my granddaughter so young after she survived cancer for over a year and thought she beat it and then died from it, come back with a vengeance. And so that's hard on my son. And he understands. He knows there's God. He believes in God. He's just mad.
Yeah.
And I think he's gotten closer since, but yeah, it's different. So
yeah,
his wife, she tries to go to church with my wife more often because the church was so good when we lost a granddaughter to us and so understanding. So it's still hard that when you lose somebody that young, it's just not natural.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to wrestle with.
Yeah.
It's even hard for me to hear, to be honest.
It's terrible. Yeah. She's my little hunting girl too.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
What'd you get to do with her?
Well, she started out before my grandson because she was 3 years older. And I can remember taking her bow hunting and setting in a blind with her. And we didn't see a deer, but she loved blowing on the deer calls. And then after dark, we was driving my ATV around the corner, and she saw 3 deer, and she wanted me to run them over. Get them, Papa, run them over. I said, no, that's not how we do it. But I would take them shed hunting, looking for shed antlers. Of course, I would strategically hide a couple of sheds for them to find. And they just absolutely love going shed hunting with Pops. Because every time they went, they found antlers. So
yeah.
But they loved the outdoors. Both of them did, and still do.
Yeah, that's good. Some good memories there.
Yeah.
I want to jump back real quick. You mentioned previously being a volunteer firefighter.
Hmm.
How did you get into that?
Um, I had a house fire, and funny story is my house. I just built the house, and we left for the day. And I come back, I get a phone call that my house is on fire, and I go out there. I have 8 or 10 deer heads hanging in the house, and I was so impressed with these firefighters who were all volunteer firefighters. They were trying to save my house, and one of the guys went in there with the fire hose and knocked my deer heads off the walls with the hose because he was also a bow hunter, and he went through there and salvaged 3 or 4 of my deer heads. And one of the firefighters got injured at my house because it was cold out and they slipped on the ice. And I was just so impressed with with the firefighters, and I didn't know them from Adam, that they did put their life on the line to help a stranger. That it impressed me so much. I asked, could I become a firefighter in my township, you know, back then. And I did, and I was until I moved here. In fact, like I say, that was 18 plus years. I was on the department. I was even firefighter of the year in 1997 for my area. But my captain is still, he and I, even though he's in Michigan, he still comes down and hunts with me, and we're still very good friends after all these years. And he was the firefighter back then. He wasn't the captain of the department then, or he's the chief now. But he was the person who salvaged my deer heads off the wall just
Hmm.
because he was also a fellow bow hunter.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just the deer heads, it was just their selfless acts. And I wanted to give back to my community the way they did. And that's why I joined and was a firefighter I was a firefighter before 9/11 when everybody wanted to be a firefighter. You remember when in New York City because
Yeah.
they lost so many firefighters. And I said I was a firefighter before it was cool to be one. And it was a brotherhood, you know. And to this day, if I hear a pager go off, man, my heart rate gets going because I was a firefighter for
Right.
many years. Yeah.
Yeah, that
So
makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah, I was curious because one of the things that inspired me to start this podcast, a friend of mine and I were talking about uh, one of my I originally started my career in film. I used to live in California and worked in Hollywood, and at some point I started getting into documentary films, and I did one on my uncle who was a fallen firefighter, and I
Mm.
continued to do documentaries kind of my own, even when I moved to North Carolina, and I did another one somewhat recently on kind of focused on smoke, like a carcinogen
Mm.
effects and PTSD. And I just started realizing that while I do other types of documentaries, that kind of became my niche. So I thought about even on this podcast to help promote that kind of stuff, to interview firefighters. So I thought it was interesting that it turned out you had some experience with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a personality type. I mean, I believe in America, we need strong men. We need strong dads. What is it about a crazy person who runs into a house fire? What is it about an outdoorsman? I think, and I'm not bragging myself up, but I think I was raised by a strong man to be a good. Actually, although my dad wasn't always a great dad because he drank a lot, but he
Mhm.
still had 3 sons, and he taught us boys as a young age. I was driving a lot when I was 10 years old. He had a Moore's custom welding shop. My dad was an entrepreneur. He worked for himself. I think it's because he couldn't work for anybody else because of his crazy attitude. But there was nothing we couldn't build. I mean, he was a welder. He was a carpenter. He built his own house. I built my own house. I could fix anything mechanically. And that's why I said it's a certain thing that we come so natural that my son is a maintenance guy, and he's one of the top paid maintenance guys at his company because he's so knowledgeable. In the Army, he was a munition or a combat engineer. That's it. And he taught others how to do explosives. What makes people want to learn that or be a firefighter? It's a certain personality type or if you can do it, I can do it attitude.
Right.
And I try to instill that kind of confidence in my son and in my grandson. And there is nothing he cannot do. And to me, being an outdoorsman, learning how to hunt and trap and fish and farm, if something ever happened in this world and Armageddon came, they're going to look for people like us who can take care of ourselves. And I think it's, again, but we're still godly men. I think you try to be as humble as you can, but you teach your young men and women in your family how to be independent. And I think hunting is just part of that.
Yeah.
And service, giving something back. I wanted to be a Marine when I was out of high school, and I couldn't. They wouldn't let me because when I was a kid, I had open heart surgery just because I was born with a defect in my chest. So I could not join the Marines, and I was so bummed out. And I'm like, what can I do? I have to be able to do something to serve my country. So when a fire that happened to me, rather than being a victim, I turned it around to be giving something back. And I think that's what people should do. When I learned how to bow hunt, and it took me so long to do it, I wanted to give something back so the next kids could have success faster than I did, so they don't give up. And that's what inspired me to become an instructor as well. So it's kind of an interesting thing, the way, and I was so shy when I was a kid that you'd never know, I've been a supervisor for 30 some years now, that I would ever be a boss, being that shy kid growing up. But I think that independence and that leadership, it's in there somewhere. You just got to make it come out.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. All right. That's pretty much it for my questions. Do you have anything else that you were hoping to add or talk about?
No, I just truly love the outdoors, and I think we should get more kids into it, get them away from their cell phones, and get them off the couch and get them outside. I was never a sports person too much. I wrestled in high school. That's it. But my grandson and my granddaughter, when she was around, we got them, and even both my kids, we got them in every sport they could handle, because I think it teaches discipline and teamwork. And I think we're failing as parents and as a country if we don't get our kids off their phones and outside. Well, and in church, learning about God. Those are the things that's going to save this country. So I think we need more people who are willing to step up and do it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Get that younger generation in church.
Yep, absolutely. And I think it's coming back.
I think so.
Starting to see it. So,
yeah, I think this last year, I think, was very telling of that happening. We're having it's almost like that. Have you seen the movie Jesus Revolution? Where all the hippies went into following Christ.
And we're seeing that in some of the universities now.
Yeah, I think we're having that now.
Yes, I think it's a good thing. So glad to see it maybe turning around, and enough of this political correctness crap and all this DEI is, at some point it's gone too far, and I think it's going to turn around pretty quickly, and hopefully in a good way.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, it's a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on, and thank you. Thank you for tuning in. If you like this content, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. And if you want to join the adventure, you can pick yourself up a nice hat or a camping coffee mug and brew yourself some coffee right above a nice little fire at greatoutdoorspodcast.com. Oh, kind of grainy.